Hi, Michaela. I understand it's helpful to establish some simple routines when running cooking activities because there's lots of things to manage and you want to make sure that everything's safe and enjoyable for anyone. Can you share with us the routines that you put in place when you're running sessions?
Yes, so the first thing I would say is really important to be a good role model. What I mean by that is, from a personal perspective, so making sure that I'm ready for cooking, for example, with my hair tied up and aprons on, but also making sure that I'm working in the room as safely as possible so everybody else can follow my lead.
Great. And when you've got your participants in the room for the first time, how do you get that session off to a good start and get everybody interacting and getting to know each other?
Well, we always start with a quick, fun foodie activity to bond the group. So it could be foodie bingo, it could be the A to Z of fruit and vegetables. And I also like the group to make breakfast together. So maybe make some, toast with some fresh bread, some wholemeal bread, some fruit and some yogurt, or maybe even a little tasting exercise with some seasonal fruit and vegetables at that point of the year. And this is where you can get to share the tone for the session. It's going to be fun, but listening is imperative, due to the health and safety guidelines.
That sounds like some nice ways to get everyone in the mood at the start of the session. Is there any personal prep that you need to make people aware of?
Yeah, you need to be very clear about the importance of hand washing and any other personal preparation, such as wearing aprons and tying up or covering loose hair. Removal of nail varnish is imperative as well. And if you don't have access to nail varnish remover, carrying around gloves is always a tip. And identify those with food allergies. You might have to quickly adapt a recipe last minute. So it's always handy to carry around gluten-free flours and dairy alternatives, cow's milk and butter and yogurt, things like soya product you could use. And eggs can always be removed depending on the recipe and replaced by water or other substitutes. So things can always be adapted to the participants' needs in the room.
Great. And how important is it to prep the room beforehand?
Yeah, room preparation is important because you need to make sure that there's clear access for all within to and from the room, and there's plenty of room to walk around safely between the tables. You need to identify areas to suit the size and makeup of the group. So what I mean by that is making sure the height of the chairs and tables are right. So obviously for children, they need to be smaller than for adults. And making sure that you take into account their physical capabilities. So some participants, for example, may need to sit down while cooking. So making sure that that chair is in a safe position that everyone can move freely around them. Clarifying fire procedures, again, at this point is important, where the fire exits are and where you will stand if there is a fire drill. And making sure that housekeeping is part of your checklist. So making sure that the participants know where the toilet facilities are and where they can clean and wash their dishes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And what goes into ingredients preparation before everybody arrives?
Well, it's always a good idea to make a shopping list, and it won't just be obviously just food, for your cleaning materials as well. But before doing that, before maybe doing an online shop or shopping in a large supermarket, make sure that you go and look, at your community gardens and your local shops and your local greengrocers and seeing what they're offering. And because often it is very seasonal and often it can be cheaper. Storing your food as well safely at all points, especially if you're carrying proteins, so meat and fish and dairy around, making sure that that is then transported in the correct way and then put into the fridge and freezer on arrival at the venue. Portioning your ingredients out as part of your set out, so making sure that your kit is ready for your group, and washing all fruit and vegetables, making sure that there's no soil on them at all. And then again, highlighting allergens once again in this part, making sure that there's nobody in the room that's allergic to the ingredients, and making sure if there is that they are removed and they are substituted with other ingredients.
Perfect, thank you. And in terms of when everyone gets going with their cooking, are there any particular routines there that help things run smoothly?
Yeah, we expect, what we call tidy cooks. We expect people to think about their area around them and wipe down using a J-cloth, wet J-cloth, using hot soapy water to wash dishes up in, making sure that they are dry and put away properly, and sharing and being respectful towards each other. So, when people are talking about their experiences regarding food and cooking, that we are listening. And then I think the last thing that I think is the most important for me is keep an eye on a clock, because the time can run away with you very easily. And then you're sort of sat in front of an oven, staring at the oven, waiting for the things to come out the oven. So just making sure that you're following the time of the session. So, writing a timeline is always a handy tip of what you're going to be doing at what time during that session.
Perfect. Yes, I can imagine once conversations get underway, it's quite easy to lose track of time
Very, yes.
and get fully engrossed in cooking and chatting at the same time. And so it's the end of the session, the food's been enjoyed, and there's a big stack of dishes left.
Yes.
How do you plan that last bit so that, it's a positive end rather than people seeing it as a bit of a drag?
And, and washing up is a barrier. We know this. It is a barrier for cooking and leading sessions. But at the end of it, I think it's a nice social activity, to stand up together, to wash, to dry, to put things away. You can talk about the session and what you've enjoyed and what you've learned, but also, making sure that you've emptied the bins and you've checked the fridge and freezer, that you've not left any ingredients there, and then making sure that you leave the room as you found it. So you might have moved some tables and chairs around, for example, so you might make sure that you put those back to where they were when you entered the room. So just being respectful to your environment and the community that you're working in.
Perfect. I guess it's a bit of an opportunity to gather some feedback, isn't it, about how your session has gone?
Absolutely. And evaluation forms are obviously of paramount importance, but that informal feedback at the end that you get verbally from people is just as important. That's when the smiles and the happiness and the memories come out, and the excitement of moving forward and going on to deliver their own sessions, and they're doing the, teaching themselves and buzzing the room at that point is really exciting. So you almost forget that you're washing dishes, to be honest.
Perfect. That's what you want. Great. Thanks, Michaela.